It is a bright and sunny Saturday morning. I'm gonna mark up some logs here, just a few of the ones, I think they're in the last video. We haven't done much videos here lately. It's been slow the last week, kind of the last 2 weeks. We've had some wet weather, which have slowed us down on several of our projects. Dad and I have looked at quite a bit of timber. Dad's bought some pretty good jobs of walnut here in the last week or 10 days. Of course, some equipment things. I got the Western Star back yesterday after they did some updates to it. It had a couple of recalls, which Tag Truck Center takes very, very good care of us. So we got that back. They put a toolbox on the side of the truck I've had ordered for a while. And if you look behind me here, I got some rock to spread on the yard. I just keep trying to, of course, as a lot of you guys know, the ground eats rock, especially when you're running over with heavy log trucks or heavy loads, whatever it may be. So, but my goal is to have a lot of this rock because like here, we're actually going to widen this spot out right here. I'll probably lay some of our better logs, our veneer out down here, because we've kind of been running out of room, it seems like. So we're just trying to expand that a little bit for more storage. And like some of the logs that we actually send out on flatbeds or ship out, we'll bring them back down here and I'll have a wide spot where we'll have plenty of room for the trucks and they can load. And just some other odds and ends. Of course, this is some trimmings. I've had some friends come over cutting firewood off of it, which they're coming back over here today to cut more wood. So it just it kind of works out for them. It's stuff that we don't want or need, and they can utilize it. So it works out good. But back to the mission at hand here. These are some of the ones, or I guess these are the ones that Brandon and I cut Monday. I guess that was. I lose track of time. Some decent size logs. And I think that's got just about all my walnut over there. There might be one or two more big enough to cut, which this is a pretty good stick of wood here. It's got a good 12-foot piece in it. Some lumber in the top. Of course, now some of these, you look at them, they're a little crooked, but by the time you cut them up, kind of clean them up, they'll make good little logs. Like I said, it's just stuff off that little piece of ground I bought that's kind of fun on slow days to go over there and cut. And as you see in the video, there's some decent oak over there, and I haven't made up my mind what I'm going to do with it yet. But for now, we'll go through these, which this one here wasn't in very bad shape, or very good shape. See, the bark was coming off of it, so it'll still make some lumber. Of course, these are just they're crude. That needs to be cut off right there. Same with that one. It helps when you clean your logs up. Definitely. This turned out to be a pretty good chunk of wood here. Kind of size comparison there on my stick. So definitely a good piece of wood. Now I don't go over marking logs very often. I've touched on it on a few videos. And with oak and stuff, your oak, maple ash, any kind of pallet timber, whatever. It's pretty cut and dry, pretty simple. Walnut's a little different animal, and we see a lot of people who think they're going to take it upon themselves to cut their own timber, who will just mark their timber wrong. They'll just butcher it. And I know we get a lot of naysayers. Well, what's it matter? Well, it matters a tremendous amount. And just like that, your log deck's where your money's made, really, in walnut timber. Because if you mark this timber wrong, you make the wrong cuts, cut short lengths, cut it where it doesn't need to be cut, depending on knots, taper, just odds and ends, crooks. There's a lot of factors and variables involved. I mean, it is. I mean, there's thousands of dollars on the line depending on the size of the job. You know, if you got some volume, it'll make you break you real quick. And a lot of people think that, you know, if they're just trying to cut volume, they'll just try to make all 8s in a log like this. Well, that's not good either. Yeah, in the end, you might have a little bit more footage, but leaving these logs longer in places or shorter in other places will put those logs in different pricing brackets. So very important on how and where you mark your logs, in which this is just a little set and I'm bored just killing some time before I go look at a tract of timber over at Nevada, Missouri. So we'll just go through this to get a video out there today. And it's probably going to be a short video anyway, but we'll go over this. Ignore that right there because I had Brandon pull this tree over. You can kind of see where I had a little bit of hinge wood right there. I bore most of my hinges out and leave just a little bit hold. I actually think this one kind of pulled a little bit sideways, and that was my fault because I Didn't cut as much as I should have, but neither here nor there. The main thing is it's a good flush cut, no fiber pull in the heartwood or anything like that. So here we've got a 12-foot piece. I believe that's what we did. Let's remeasure. And this is what my dad, growing up, I watched my dad use these. This is what I use. All right, I lied. We got a 10-foot piece. And again, just like that, here's 10 foot. Here's 6 more inches of what they call trim. You don't ever want to cut your logs precisely on 8, 9, 10, 17, 28, 32, 3 foot. You don't ever want to cut it on an exact number. You always want to leave some inches for trim for the people who don't know logging. I know you guys that log, this is nothing new to you. A couple reasons why we cut this log at 10, didn't go 12. You can see here we got some problems, some swell going on. And it's clean. This 10-foot butt is clean. On the bottom side, it looks like we had a limb growing out there, and I can't see it, but I'm assuming that's what we had. So on the next cut, I just made an 8 because of that problem right there. So we've got a still pretty clean on this side 8-foot log. Go down here, and you can kind of see that a little more evident right there. Next log here. And of course, I went ahead and put some paint on places where I'd clean these logs up. And this is where you hear the term we use, rounding logs. So we're going to cut that off. Now just imagine that's not there. All of a sudden, that's a lot better looking log. And you guys that truck your own logs like we do, they fit on the truck a lot better. You don't have as much dead air on a truck or your pup when you got rounded logs. Everything fits on there better. So the next cut, it looks like we've got either I don't know, let's measure it, because I'm gonna say it's either a 10 or 12. All right, so we got another 10. And again, even on this lumber, we're giving it some trim. I cut it here. We got about fell. And we'll trim that off as well, but we cut it right here on that swell. Top piece lumber here, I think it's a 10 as well. We'll come in here, we'll shave that off because that's useless for everything. Now just imagine not being there. Yeah, it's just a lumber grade log, but it looks better. Logs, much like anything, it's still about presentation. And I didn't put any paint on this, but we'll come in there and we'll trim that off because it's just waste. That's going to come off when it goes to a sawmill anyway. They're going to slab that off. Next log, like I said, these were along the fence, so that's why we got a little bit of wood back here that held when we pulled them over. This thing was starting to die, losing its bark. I don't know if something got into it some time ago. Regardless, it's still got a decent little log in it. We've got a 12-footer right here. We're clean, up to 12 foot. No knots, no limbs, no defects. There's no worm in these trees, which is nice. Then let's look at our next little 8-foot section. We've got some problems right here. Old scar of some kind, it looks like. Something rubbing on the tree, whatever it may have been. Like I said, problems. So we got some lumber. Then we cut it right here at this knot. A little bit of a swell. We'll go ahead and we'll trim that off to kind of round this up as well. Bring it on out here at the top. Now, I always cut my logs when I top them. I cut them at the swell, trying to gain some extra inches, or inch. Fellows, an inch means a lot, doesn't it? It's just like in these logs, an inch means a lot on your footage. So we always try to pick up what we can, and we'll shave that off to make that look better. Let's get into these bigger logs real quick. So this is a pretty good log here, and this is the one that grew out by the road, and I had Brandon push on it. That's why we've got this big ugly notch right here, because we needed all the leverage we could get, because it leaned out over the highway back there, back towards the highway, right along it. So Brandon got in the ditch as I cut it, left a little bit of hold wood, and he just pushed it on over. Worked out great. Good clean cut. We'll clean that up. We won't worry about that. We'll clean that up. No shake, no worm. Just they're kind of bleeding a little bit because the sap's trying to move in them these warm days. That don't hurt anything. Good brown wood. So we've got a good clean log here, and I did do a 12-foot on this. Go ahead and flip, and we got 12 and some inches. We cut it off right here at that knot, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because that could actually show something in the wood right here. We're taking a gamble on it. If anything, we'll let them cut it back if they want, whoever buys these logs in the future. But we want to try to pick up a little more of a size on that swell. but we do run the risk of that showing something right here. And on these good logs, that's not what you want to see. You want to see four-sided clean logs. Let's go to the next cut here. It's just an 8. Of course, I've got, just for a demonstration, showing it. We'll come in here and we'll cut that off. That'll look a lot better. Let's see, had a limb here. We'll actually, even that there, we'll come in there and we'll shave that off. And I know somebody's going to ask, why don't you do it in the timber? Well, we do what we can in the timber, because when I'm cutting them, I try to clean them up the best I can. Sometimes, depending on how they're laying, where they're at, you can't always get them cleaned up the way you wanted. So again, when you get them on the log deck, you can do a little more on that. Same with this right here. We'll come in here and we'll shave that off. That way you've got kind of a straight stick of sorts. And we got this marked right here at 8 foot above this crotch. And it's just lumber. That's just a lumber piece on that. We're just trying to keep it in some size, keep the volume there. And in the top, we've got a 10-footer, which I've got some paint there that we'll shave that off. And again, this is a lower grade lumber in the top, but we're just looking for the volume here. This thing here was threw me kind of a curveball here. If you look at it, after that knot, it starts to put a curve in it. Of course, that thing's just crooked as a politician. If you look up through there, it's these things here, they'll give you a little bit of a challenge on marking your logs. So we'll look at this and you'll see I've got some different paint marks on it. Now, this is not a high grade log. This is just what we call a bigger, nicer lumber log here. It's got some size, but you've got a bit of a problem here. Kind of looks like something was trying to grow out of it at one time. Then here, before 8 foot, you had a problem right here. But if you get down this log, you'll see it is crooked. And even before 8 foot, it's starting to crook. When I was going to cut it at 8, and you can see there's my first paint mark. Then I measured out 9. That dot's for 12, or excuse me, that line's for 10. I'm telling you wrong again. This is for 9. This is for 10. There we go. So a lot of times, if I'm not sure, I'll just kind of dot on my 8, 9, 10, and go on to 11 and 12 if need be. That way I kind of know where I need to go with my cut. So we come in here and it's still crooked right here. We get up here. I mean, it's just, this thing's going all over the place. And these logs are hard to kind of, like I said, they give you a little bit of a workout on marking logs. So at first I was like, well, let's see if we can make a 12 out of it, because we can cut it here at this problem. Got a limb growing out here, so we got a swell to pick up 1 inch. That is ugly back here, so that doesn't make a lot of sense for us. So we cut it back to a 10. We'll shave this off, as you can see. And just imagine with that not being there, that's a lot better looking log. It's still got crook in it, but it's a lot better looking log without that thing there hanging off of it. We'll come in here, cut this right here. It's still got some size to it. That's the main thing. You just want to try to keep that consistent diameter. So up here, same thing. We just cut an 8 foot out of this. This is more or less just a cut for volume. We'll come in and shave that off. It's an ugly piece, but it will be bought nonetheless. They don't necessarily like them, but they take them, and that's what we just, you don't want to slide too many of these ugly things in there. They'll get mad at you, not want to buy your logs. But if you got a pile of logs like we often do up there on the yard, you can kind of squeeze a few of these ugly pieces in there for fluff. And the same with this top piece here. You see it crooks real bad right here. Again, and sometimes it's just best to let the people that you're dealing with do what they want with them. If they want to cut that thing back to an 8, a 7, 6, whatever they want to do, let them do it, because once it's cut off, you can't glue it back on your length. Of course, we've got marks here showing that we'll just kind of clean that up. And again, cleaning your logs up is key. You know, it's presentation. Same thing here. And this has got kind of some funky bark growing. At first, I'm like, oh, this thing's a little wormy, but it didn't have any worm in it. The bark's kind of swirled. Just got some, my dad calls it muscle. And it's almost like it had some saplings wanting to grow out of here at one time. This is not a high grade log. This is just a lumber log. But we've got it at a 10-foot cut here, where I've got it marked. Other than those couple little issues there, it's not a bad log. It's not what we call a 4-sided log, but it's still a good little lumber log. And then in the top here, I think our next cut, we've got an 8 on it. We've got a decent little 8-foot log. Of course, you've got some more issues coming up. Knots. Again, we'll try to cut it here at the knot, pick up a little bit of volume, maybe an extra inch. Doubtful, but maybe. this next piece, we've got a 10. Of course, we've had a big limb here. And this is kind of showing that. We've tried to trim it off. I did this one in the woods here. Instead of something protruding out through here, making it look ugly, we've tried to clean that up and make it look better. Come up here to 10, same deal. Trying to cut it here at a little bit of a swell to pick up that inch, keep the diameter kind of flush through there. Then our top piece, it's just an old chunk of lumber. But old chunks of lumber, they add up. I'm notorious. My dad's got on me several times about taking too much out of the woods sometimes, because if we can market it, if we can get $1 out of it, I try to bring it out of the woods. Now sometimes we have a lot of waste, but again, it's easier to get that stuff out of the timber on your log deck, and you can kind of do with it what you want on your log deck. Well, you need to cut some off, trim it, whatever, but you can't ever put it back on once it's been cut off. I had taken off a lot of wood glue, and I don't think the buyers would like that too much. So, and here, just like this is impact damage here, where it's split from impact. It probably landed on some sort of a crotch there. That's not good. That crack goes back in here, and that'll be a huge deduction on that. But again, this is just a low grade lumber piece anyway, so you're just you're trying to get a little fluff on your footage here. Now I guess I do have my saw in the back here. I've got a saw in the back, and I could trim these up today, but I'm not. We're just kind of playing around, trying to make a short video before I gotta get on to my next appointments today. But that kind of gives you an idea, and that's a commonly asked question about how we mark or trim logs, figure logs. There's not a lot of industry secrets on that. There's some things that my dad's taught me and that I've learned along the way that I don't necessarily kind of put out there to the world to share. And I know there's other guys like that, and you just you don't ever tell all you know, but it kind of gives you an idea how we mark our logs, or what we look at when we mark logs to work them up into lengths. And again, your log deck's what makes or break you. That's where your money's made or lost right there. If you're not doing a good job of marking your logs, or if you're just trying to cut them for all eights to get volume, you're cutting a lot of money away. On your walnut, we don't have enough veneer white oak or anything like that in my part of the world, so I can't speak on that really. I've only ever seen just a very, very, very little bit of veneer white oak in my life, just because it's not something we really have here in Southwest Missouri. Every now and then we'll get into some in North Missouri along the Missouri River, but still, again, not very often. And white oak's not something I just really pursue a lot. I enjoy cutting it, but we just don't have a lot of it here, even in the stave quality. Our white oak timber's been hit pretty hard, and guys still hit it pretty hard. But for me, it's just the thing with logging or anything, you just got to find what works for you and your company and your operation. And doing what we do has worked for my family for years, long before I was ever thought of. And when I come along, was old enough to log and really start doing things, I just wanted to kind of improve on that. And don't get me wrong, I still like cutting all species of timber. I mean, I looked at some maple yesterday, and I love cutting maple. It's not worth anything, but I enjoy cutting it as a cutter. It's fun to cut to me. Sycamore's the same way. I bought some sycamore earlier this week, and it's not that there's a tremendous amount of money in sycamore, but it's just one of those things. Every now and then, I get a hankering to cut sycamore. It's fun to cut. My dad enjoys cutting sycamore. It's one of those things you can just cut a tremendous amount of volume fast if you're in the right timber stand with it. But enough of me rambling, guys. That's just a little rundown of what it looks like when we mark up some logs. I know that's not a very big classroom there, but it'll give you some idea. Maybe it'll be helpful to some of you guys. I know I've talked to some guys here in the last few months that from way away that say they watch our videos and have learned a lot, which I don't know how you can learn much of anything from us, but I'm definitely not a teacher. But do with it what you want. That's kind of the rundown on that. I'm gonna get ready to go look at some more timber. See you guys later.